Queen Elizabeth II had an unparalleled reign, the effect of which has been felt across the world. In her record-breaking 7 decades on the throne, she witnessed the end of the British Empire and welcomed radical societal shifts. She was the first person in the UK to make a long-distance phone call without an operator, the first monarch in the world to send an email, and one of the first to tweet.
The Queen's reign was monumental in absolutely every sense. It was peppered with superlatives. She was the longest reigning British monarch. Her head appeared on more coins than any other living monarch. She was, herself, like a monument, unchanging.
Through it all, Britain's satisfaction with the Queen averaged close to 80%. Here's the story of her remarkable reign in numbers.
Through the gates of Buckingham Palace,
Queen Elizabeth II's coronation was on June 2nd, 1953.
carrying a beautiful and radiant girl to her coronation.
She was only 27 when she formally devoted her life to the crown. By the end of that life, she had reigned over a Britain that was vastly transformed. For one thing, its population was a lot older. In 1953, only 11% of Britons were over 65. By 2020, that had risen to 19%. And the Queen was an oddity. She was a woman with a job. Only 26% of British women were in the labour force in the 1950s. By 2021, 72% of women worked.
When Elizabeth came to the throne, she ruled over an England that was whiter, more conservative and more traditional than the one we see around us now.
Through her reign, the country's views on same-sex marriage, race relations, and women's rights have all dramatically liberalised. But there was no such dramatic shift in support for the monarchy. Throughout, it never dipped below 60%. Perhaps that was down to the Queen's inscrutable nature.
The Queen had a talent for saying a lot while saying almost nothing at all. She was almost the perfect constitutional monarch. Nobody knew what she thought. And there's nothing more enigmatic than not knowing what somebody thinks.
If being an enigma was part of the reason for her popularity, so too was her dedication to her role.
And the royal yacht sails into Wolf's Cove to receive a salute of welcome.
The Queen worked incredibly hard at her job. In 2017, at the age of 91, she attended 292 public engagements. And when her husband of 73 years, the Duke of Edinburgh, died, she took only 4 days off. She also went through her red box, a case filled with government papers for her attention, daily throughout her 7-decade reign. Taking time off for just Christmas Day and Easter.
One of the things that her prime ministers have said is that it's very clear she has a very good grasp of what is going on. You don't impress with your knowledge of British state without working at it.
And the Queen's role extended far beyond one small island. In 1953, she reigned over a dwindling British Empire. She was head of state for 55 overseas territories. By 2021, just 14 of these remained.
Singapore means Lion City, so it's appropriate that lions and dragons should take part in the independence celebrations.
Ending all our constitutional links with Britain was proclaimed and given the royal seal of approval.
As the empire disappeared, the Commonwealth grew, a voluntary club of countries with the Queen at its head. By 2021, its 54 member states were home to 2.4 billion people across 5 continents.
That the Commonwealth has remained strong, it feels like one of those diplomatic puzzles. It's kind of the ghost of the empire. And of all the things, you would think that who would want to belong to it? And it was often felt that the thing that was really holding it together was her.
In her reign, Elizabeth visited almost every Commonwealth country. In fact, travelling to her overseas territories was one of the first things she did as Queen.
The 5-month tour takes the royal couple first to Africa, then to Ceylon, Australia and New Zealand.
Between November 1953 and May 1954, she visited 14 in an epic tour around the world.
Black Star Square, the enormous parade ground in the centre of Accra.
7 years later, she visited Ghana. The country was suffering deep political turmoil.
The Queen and President Nkrumah first drove past the 5,000 troops.
Days before she arrived, bombs were going off in the capital city of Accra. But she went anyway, to a roaring reception.
Whatever else is blown into the limbo of history, the personal regard and affection which we in Ghana have for Your Majesty and for Your Royal Highness will remain.
Even beyond the Commonwealth, she loved to explore the world. She was probably the most well-travelled monarch in history, visiting over 100 countries. She met 13 US presidents and 5 popes. But it wasn't just the many people the Queen met whom she made an impression on.
The whole world knew who the Queen was. One of the photos that was taken of her that was on the British stamp for decades is thought to have been the most reproduced photograph in history. Her image had appeared on more coins than any other living monarch. For that alone, she was one of the most famous women in the world.
She was portrayed in 100 films and TV shows, from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Queen, ladies and gentlemen.
And a Gallup poll listed her as one of the world's top 10 most admired women, 52 times. That's more than Mother Teresa and Oprah Winfrey combined. Elizabeth II was one of the world's longest reigning monarchs, surpassed only by Louis XIV of France. The numbers behind Queen Elizabeth II's remarkable reign speak for themselves. But perhaps her most enduring legacy is the way in which she ruled.
The Queen's stoic devotion to her rule was legendary. It's said that before her coronation, to get used to the immense weight of her crown resting upon her head, she used to practice by wearing it at breakfast. And in a way, she never took it off again.
To see more of The Economist's coverage of the death of Queen Elizabeth II, click the link.